Now it's been a mining and energy intensive week. Cape Town saw not only the investing in African mining in Indaba, but also the first ever solar power Africa trade show, which is still underway. The event, aimed at advancing renewable energy development in Africa, highlights South Africa's green hydrogen potential. And Craig Parker, a research director at Frost Sullivan, joins us with more insights on turning the country into a major producer and exporter of green hydrogen. Craig, thank you for your time and good afternoon.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Greg, let's maybe first paint a picture of where we are with green hydrogen as a country. Is it feasible? Is it commercially viable as a source of energy?
Yes, so when it comes to hydrogen, one thing we have to remember is obviously that there's various forms of production of hydrogen. So when we speak of green hydrogen, we're speaking specifically of hydrogen that is created by electrolysis through either solar or wind power. So basically by renewable electricity. So it needs electricity for that process. And basically what's been happening in South Africa, since about 2007, we had, an interest in this, but it's only recently in the past 2-3 years that we've actually seen a major increase in looking at green hydrogen as a fuel source, for demand industries. And South Africa has realized this and has outlined, some of these targets and is actually, very well suited for our country to become quite a competitive player in the export market for green hydrogen, because we have so much potential for solar energy specifically within this country itself.
With that said, Craig, are we at a point where we can produce a green hydrogen at this point? Where are we in terms of the actual production of the energy source?
Right. So when it comes to the actual production, we do have the project that was moving in Namibia. There's a couple of pilot programs that they've been looking at in South Africa itself. Looking at the Platinum Valley initiative, which is looking at creating a hydrogen valley between it's like a hydrogen corridor that will link Anglo-American, in their platinum mines between Johannesburg, Durban, and there's sort of 9 hydrogen-related industries, that they've linked with us. We've also got, another plant in Kucha, and then there's a big one in Boegoebaai with Sasol that's looking at a green hydrogen development project there in the Namakwa Special Economic Zone in the Northern Cape. Where they're actually looking at exporting hydrogen from there through and eventually using 30 gigawatts of wind and solar power to actually export this and use this for export. Yeah. There's also the ammonia plant in Kucha in Port Elizabeth. So there's a couple of these projects that are in the pipeline. But nothing that has actually been, feasibly built at this stage.
I'll also ask you about, then the export potential here and being a producer of it. Of course, we would have to increase volumes in terms of production. Then we would have to find some sort of take-off, Craig. What does that look like, and even the costs of bringing that online?
Right. So when it comes to the actual supply of hydrogen, the one thing is that it is obviously a volume game. So a lot of economies of scale come into play with this, especially when it comes to the production. When it comes to the transport, there's also obviously special storage issues. It's you either got to transport the hydrogen in liquefied form versus normal gas form. All of that has cost implications and obviously implications on the transport sector itself. So is it pipeline? Is it going to be rail? Is it going to be road. So there's various economies of scale that play there that make road transport not as cost effective. Now, when it comes to the demand for that, one of the biggest drivers internationally for demand will obviously be the transportation sector for hydrogen. But there are also applications, in the steel industry, in the mining industry, construction industry, to use hydrogen as a fuel source for that. But the main driver and catalyst for this is definitely going to be the transportation sector.
I also want to ask about infrastructure and where we are with that. I think South Africa already has an infrastructure backlog. So not only do we have to look ahead, but we also have to look backwards. Where does the production of green hydrogen come into the infrastructure question?
Right. I think this also ties, directly into investment into the sector itself. Now, there was a lot of discussion, I know, at the mining Indaba, as well as the solar convention that we did have. And one of the things that is key to this is attracting investment. And there's a lot of talk of government involvement in these projects. But then a lot of talk on the ground is actually, that there's a difficulty actually getting these investors to bite. Now, because these investments are particularly large scale, you need, DFIs, you need international investment, you need quite substantial equity to actually go into this. And what investors are actually looking for is a stable investment environment. Now, that requires us to obviously have the correct policies in place for hydrogen. We're actually seeing that is actually being laid out fairly decently in the the plans that we do have, especially for solar, and the hydrogen strategies that we do have. But for that to work, we unfortunately do need a well-functioning transport sector. And there's a couple of other things we structurally need to work on in the economy for investors to actually be fully confident of what they're looking at. A lot of things happening in Europe when you speak to European investors and US investors, they particularly hesitant, looking at what's happening with Transnet. They, that is a factor. They're looking at what's happening with the mines. There are discussions of security of supply. So once these things, I think, are met head on and discussed frankly and openly with, investors, I think that would definitely go a long way in securing and actually getting them to bite on these projects.
That's all we have time for today, Craig. Thank you so much for talking to us about this. I hope we get it right. That was Frost & Sullivan's Research Director, Craig Parker.